My elder sister, Ta Qingling, was everyone's white moonlight, while I was no more than the mud beneath their feet. I discovered a method to control the floods. I was supposed to be conferred as a noble consort. But in broad daylight, my father accused me of stealing my sister's achievement. Later, my sister was showered with favor in the palace, while I was thrown into the Department of Penal Punishment, enduring 81 cruel tortures that nearly took my life. I married into the general's mansion, and my husband treated me tenderly. I thought my suffering had finally come to an end. But one night, in a drunken stupor, his bloodshot eyes uttered a cruel truth. You resemble Qingling by 30%, that alone is a blessing bestowed by the heavens. My heart turned cold as ash. I was nothing but a stand-in, discarded into a cold and remote courtyard to fend for myself. My kind elder sister paid me a visit, then shoved a cold blade into my hand. Before I could react, my husband kicked me hard into the wall, his eyes full of hatred. Wretched thing. Qingling came in kindness to visit, and you tried to murder her. Thank heavens I arrived in time. My internal organs felt shattered. Blood flowed endlessly from my lips. As I lay dying, I saw my mother rush in, not to help me, but to embrace Qingling carefully in her arms. Her eyes filled with malice, she snarled. Vicious girl. You deserve to die. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day His Majesty intended to bring me into the palace. Just tasked you with cooking nourishing porridge for Qingling these past 3 days, and you dared slack off, using well water instead of dew. No wonder her health has declined. You wicked thing, sabotaging her behind our backs. I woke to my mother furiously pointing at me, her hands on her hips. The next moment, smack, a burning pain on my cheek. This slap is to teach you a lesson you won't forget. My father's face was stern, but his eyes hid endless disappointment. I clutched my cheek with one hand, held my heavy forehead with the other. I'd stayed up 3 nights watching over the stove, my body exhausted, my head dizzy. Then came a blow like thunder. Father struck me, hard. My ears rang as I lost balance, falling backward, tipping over the pot of carefully brewed porridge. No one even glanced my way. My mother cradled Qingling gently, while father hovered nervously beside her. Qingling spoke in a frail voice, ever so soft. Mother, it's my fault, cough. I'm too weak. Mother's heart ached. Oh Qingling, even now you try to protect her. You poor child. She then turned to me, eyes sharp. Do you admit your crime? Crime. I let out a bitter laugh. What crime had I committed? Since childhood, I was branded a bringer of misfortune, born to clash with Qingling's fate and cause her mysterious illness. Mother sought famous doctors across the land, finally acquiring a prescription, porridge boiled over low heat with morning dew and rare herbs, consumed daily to nurse Qingling's health. She said it was karmic debt I owed Qingling. If Qingling fell ill, I had to cook the porridge. Yet Qingling accused me of poisoning it. I was whipped nearly to disfigurement. She forbade me from using servants, locked me alone in the tiny kitchen. I was exhausted and drowsy, almost burned myself alive. She once brought a drunken servant into my room, planning to ruin me. These weren't isolated incidents. I had suffered many such times. I cried to my mother, but she always believed Qingling, saying I lied to shirk responsibility. After all, Qingling was a bright moon in everyone and Oppo's heart, and I, though a legitimate daughter, was treated lower than a servant. In my past life, southern floods brought chaos. People were displaced, starving, desperate. I stayed up for days, poring through ancient texts, finally crafting a method to tame the waters. I asked father to present it to the court. Soon, the floods were quelled. The emperor, pleased, wanted to make me a noble consort in recognition. Qingling, upon hearing this, wept before mother night and day. Mother, I have always adored His Majesty. If not for my clashing fate with my sister, my body wouldn't be this frail. Why is it she, so unlucky by birth, can be raised so high, while I must bear the pain of unrequited love. Mother was heartbroken and whispered into father's ear. He rushed to the palace, accusing me of stealing Qingling's work. He told the emperor I was deceitful and glory-hungry. Enraged, the emperor revoked his favor and summoned Qingling instead. As for me, I was imprisoned, tortured, and crippled. My legs shattered. I was left a cripple. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life rotting away, but the noble heir Bui Zhihui suddenly proposed marriage. After marrying into the general's mansion, he treated me with warmth. I thought heaven had opened its eyes at last. But one drunken night, he said with bloodshot eyes, "You look a bit like Qingling. That alone makes you a gift from the heavens. Otherwise, why would I, the son of a general, marry a cripple like you?" Only then did I realize I was just her substitute. My heart crumbled. I tore off all pretense and confronted him. We quarreled fiercely. He cast me into a cold, abandoned courtyard. Then Qingling visited me, so gentle, so fake, only to shove a sharp blade into my hand, before pressing its edge to her neck. Before I could respond, Zhihui kicked me hard. "Wretched woman. Qingling came with kindness, and you tried to kill her. Thank goodness I got here in time." My organs ruptured. Blood poured from my lips. I saw Mother rushing in. I reached out to her, begging for help. But she only embraced Qingling tenderly, glaring at me. "You vicious thing. Die, you deserve it." As my breath faded, I heard their conversation, and finally understood. Qingling was not father's daughter. She was the product of a secret affair between mother and her maternal cousin. Afraid that I would steal father's affection, mother concocted the tale of fate-clashing daughters. Qingling was truly ill, but from birth. Her sickness had nothing to do with me. I hated her, and all of them. I hated her, Ta Qingling, for stealing everything from me. But even more, I hated mother, for orchestrating it all with her own hands. And father, for being blind and biased, always choosing her over me. This time, I will make them pay dearly. Just as father and mother were about to order me to the ancestral hall to kneel in punishment, a eunuch's voice rang out from the front courtyard. The imperial decree had arrived. Only then did they temporarily halt their fury. Father furrowed his brows and let out a heavy sigh. "Qingjue, my daughter, don't blame your father for striking you. It's only because you've truly gone too far. Qingling has always been weak because of you. Yet all we ask is for you to cook a little porridge for her, and even that you do with deceit, completely disregarding sisterly affection. I'm thoroughly disappointed in you." I looked up, voice cold and detached. If father cares so deeply for elder sister, why not make the porridge yourself? Besides, I brewed that porridge with sincerity. I personally gathered each drop of morning dew. Yet with just a few baseless rumors, you're so quick to assume I've acted maliciously. Have you no sense of right and wrong? Father choked on his words, unable to respond. You unfilial child. You create misfortune and now expect me to bear the blame. And tell me, where there's smoke, isn't there fire? If you were innocent, why would the entire household accuse you? He flung his sleeves in anger and stormed off to the front courtyard. I struggled to stand. My vision blurred, my body swayed, and I collapsed to the ground. He never once looked back. This man, my own father, trusted in fate over his own blood. For years, he used it to justify his cruelty. And now he had the gall to ask why the household would slander me. These servants, used to following the wind, had always trampled over me, because I, the legitimate daughter, was treated like dirt. I dragged my tired body back to my room, pulled a sachet from under my pillow, hid it inside my sleeve, then slowly made my way to the front hall. Just like in my previous life, the imperial decree had arrived. The eunuch read, His Majesty rewards the Ta family for their daughter's great merit. His Majesty has intentions to summon Miss Ta Qingjue to the palace and grant her the title of noble consort. The moment Ta Qingling heard this, unwillingness surged in her heart. She clung to father and mother's sleeves, weeping softly. I've always admired His Majesty with all my heart. Upon hearing this, father immediately followed the eunuch into the palace. Not long after, I was brought before the emperor by the imperial guards. Before His Majesty could even speak, father loudly berated me. "You wicked creature! Speak the truth now, how did you so cruelly steal your sister's merit?" Then, bam, I felt pain in my knees. Father had kicked me to the ground. Though my head was spinning, I forced myself upright. "Your Majesty, I did not steal my sister's accomplishment. The flood control method was my idea." Seeing I refused to yield, father jabbed his finger at my face. "Unfilial thing. You were born to clash with Qingling's fate and always stirred trouble. Now, before His Majesty, you still dare speak such nonsense. You won't shed tears until you see the coffin." Even though I'd endured this countless times before, my nose still stung. Since childhood, I had tried to stay away from Qingling. But she constantly provoked me. Each time, right as I retaliated, father or mother would walk in, seeing only the aftermath, never the cause. And Qingling, always so adept at acting weak, would win their pity effortlessly. So the whole household believed I bullied her. I bit my lip and insisted. "The flood control plan is mine." Vile girl. Mother appeared at some point, and before I could finish my sentence, she slapped me across the face. I was knocked to the ground. A bitter, metallic taste flooded my mouth. Blood trickled from the corner of my lips. She dropped to her knees, kowtowing before the emperor. "Your Majesty, please forgive her. This unworthy daughter of mine has an evil heart. To lie so blatantly before Your Majesty, trying to steal her own sister's merit, I beg Your Majesty's mercy for her first offense." I sneered inwardly. She looked like she was pleading for me, but every word condemned me instead. This mother of mine truly saw me as nothing. I opened my mouth to defend myself. But father cut me off, shouting, "You wicked daughter! Beg His Majesty for forgiveness now. Must you bring ruin upon our entire family before you're satisfied?" His words, just like in my previous life, implied that I should endure for the family's sake. In my past life, it was exactly this that frightened me into silence. I let them orchestrate everything out of fear the entire family would be punished. But this time, never again. I steadied my voice and looked up at the man Sitdeov. "Your Majesty, since father and mother insist I stole the flood control method, why not summon elder sister to testify?" The emperor seemed surprised by my calm composure, such poise in the face of danger from a mere noblewoman. His eyes showed a trace of approval. Soon, Ta Qingling was brought forth. She had never faced such a situation before, her face pale, her hands nervously twisting her silk handkerchief. She could barely perform the proper courtesies. Mother's heart ached at the sight, and she glared at me viciously. I stepped forward and offered a flawless salute. My voice was respectful but firm. "Your Majesty, since my sister and I offer conflicting accounts, perhaps it would be best if we each explain the origin and theory behind the flood control method. Then the truth shall be clear, and needless accusations avoided." The emperor gave me a thoughtful look and nodded, clearly intrigued. A faint smile curved my lips. I spoke slowly and clearly, explaining the method in full, citing historical precedents, laying out the principles in detail. My logic was precise, my words easy to follow. More thorough than anything father had ever submitted. The emperor's face showed open praise. He nodded repeatedly. When it was Qingling's turn, she grew flustered. Her brows knitted tight, fingers clenching her handkerchief, eyes full of panic. Seeing this, I asked with a slight sneer. "What's the matter, elder sister? Are you unable to explain something you supposedly researched for so long?" So she remembered everything after all. "Perhaps, it's just nerves from standing before His Majesty," Ta Qingling said softly. Mother immediately came to her defense. Your Majesty, please understand. Qingling has been frail since birth and only recently recovered from a serious illness. Perhaps her fever affected her memory. But I, her mother, swear on my life, the flood control plan was indeed Qingling's work. The Emperor's face showed clear disbelief. If she cannot prove it herself, then I can only recognize the merit as belonging to Miss Qingjue. A wave of relief washed over me. Finally, they wouldn't get away with it this time. But just then, Ta Qingling slowly began to speak. And to my astonishment, she repeated my words exactly, line by line. The Emperor's expression grew increasingly suspicious. Mother, however, beamed with joy and quickly shifted blame back to me. Your Majesty, it must be this wretched girl Qingjue. She likely memorized Qingling's method in secret in order to steal her credit. That girl is vile, but she has a sharp memory. That's how she nearly deceived Your Majesty. Qingling followed up with teary eyes and righteous tone. Yes, little sister. If you desired the reward, you could have spoken to me. But how could you do something so disrespectful to the Emperor? In a moment, all eyes fell upon me, including those of the man Sitdeov, who could decide my fate with a single word. I stared coldly at Qingling's self-righteous expression, my lips curling into a confident smile. Calmly, I retrieved something from my sleeve. The Emperor stood abruptly. It's you. No doubt about it, Ta Qingjue. You are the one who contributed the flood control plan. Everyone froze. Father, mother, and Qingling stared in disbelief as the Emperor descended from his throne, quickly approaching me and offering a hand to help me up. That day at the tea house, it was you who debated flood control strategies with me, wasn't it? I knew you looked familiar, so it was a woman disguised as a man. His Majesty clasped my hand, no longer the aloof ruler on high, but more like an excited youth who had just discovered love. My cheeks flushed as I lowered my head and smiled faintly without a word. I had almost forgotten, Ta Qingling, who had read many books since childhood, could likely memorize Father's entire report to the Emperor if she tried. Her hesitant act earlier had just been bait to lower my guard. But what she didn't know was that I already had a connection with the Emperor. In my past life, I was brainwashed by those around me, made to believe that Qingling's poor health was my fault. I was terrified that if I exposed her, the whole Ta family would be punished for deceiving the Emperor. And so, I watched helplessly as she stole the credit. Qingling had likely figured out what had happened and now, eyes flickering nervously, tried once more to trap me. She pointed at the sachet in my hand, feigning surprise. Sister, isn't that my sachet? Why is it with you? The Emperor paused, brow furrowing deeper. I smirked, watching her flounder. Oh. I said lightly. So this sachet is yours. Then elder sister, why don't you tell us what's inside it? She grit her teeth and argued. Of course you've swapped the contents by now. No matter what I say, I'd be wrong. Mother quickly echoed her. Qingling is right. That girl is wicked and full of deceit. Qingling could never outmatch her. I nearly applauded them for their skill at flipping truth and lies. I calmly responded. In that case, elder sister, please tell us, what exactly did you and the Emperor discuss at the tea house that day, when you were disguised as a man? Qingling hesitated, then stammered. It was just the flood control plan. The same one I submitted earlier. Her guilty conscience was clear despite her bluster. The Emperor finally lost patience. How dare you, Ta Qingling? Still speaking nonsense before me. That day, Ta Qingjue and I debated the flood control strategy for half a day. Her final version combined both our viewpoints, completely different from the rigid plan you insisted on. You sought to defame her and steal her merit by any means. Do you understand that this is a crime of deceiving the Emperor? Qingling's face turned pale as death. She clutched her chest and collapsed. I gave her a glance, my voice cool. Elder sister, this is the palace, not our home. Even if your old illness returns, you can't escape this charge. She clenched her jaw, then dropped to her knees, begging for mercy. Father, seeing their plot exposed and fearing the emperor's wrath, turned on her instantly. Stupid girl. How could you deceive even your own parents? Then he kowtowed frantically. Your Majesty, I beg your forgiveness. I failed as a father and was deceived by my daughter. Please, judge fairly. Qingling stared in shock. This man who had once loved her now threw her under the carriage. She sat dazed on the floor, unable to process it. The emperor, ever wise, declared. For deceiving the throne, a crime punishable by death, but in light of Ta Qingjue's great contribution, and the intercession of your mother, I will be lenient. Ta Qingling shall receive 100 strikes. Lord Ta will forfeit 1 year's salary. Qingling was dragged out, screaming and sobbing. So afraid she even wet herself. The guards wrinkled their noses in disgust. With each strike, she howled. 1 stroke. 2 strokes. 3 strokes. She screamed until her voice gave out. Mother, heartbroken, clutched father's robes and cried. It's all your fault. If anything happens to her, I'll die with her. Father, overwhelmed, pushed her away with a scowl. Throughout all this, the emperor's gaze never left me. Qingjue, he said softly. That day, I had no idea you were a woman. I only marveled at how learned and eloquent you were. Now that you've rendered such a great service, I wish to bring you into the palace, as my noble consort. As his words fell, father's face lit up with joy, completely forgetting about the daughter still suffering outside. I bowed my head in silence, calculating carefully. I lowered my gaze, saying nothing, thoughts racing silently in my mind. Seeing I remained mute, father grew anxious and urged me. Qingjue, why haven't you knelt to thank His Majesty yet? I raised my eyes and looked at the man before me, handsome, noble, exceptional. Perhaps marrying him wouldn't be a terrible fate. But after everything I endured in my past life, I had long stopped believing in romantic affection. I knelt. Your Majesty, I beg forgiveness. I come from lowly origins and fear I would tarnish the dignity of the imperial house. The hall fell into stunned silence. No one had ever dared refuse the emperor's favor. I was the first. The emperor's brows furrowed. Ministers held their breath. Then, suddenly, he let out a hearty laugh. The entire hall relaxed. Excellent, he said. You truly are the woman who caught my eye. Very well, I won't force you. I hereby name you Princess Anning. From this day forth, you may freely enter and leave the palace as you wish. I smiled and received the title with calm grace. Outside the hall, Mother was still holding Ta Qingling, wailing as she clung to her barely breathing daughter. Inside, Father was kowtowing non-stop, grinning ear to ear as if nothing had happened. The next morning, I had just returned to the estate when the maid came to report. General's heir, Lord Bui Jihuai, is requesting an audience. Bui Jihuai. Had he come to propose marriage? But it was too soon for that. I instructed the maid to dress me slowly. My robes and jewelry, all fit for a titled princess, bore no trace of the shabby girl from before. When we met, Bui Jihuai couldn't conceal the astonishment in his eyes. Once, that would have filled me with joy. But now that I knew the truth, all I felt was disgust. He bowed and spoke with humility. Princess, please show mercy and forgive Lady Qingling. I frowned. What farce was this? If I recalled correctly, Qingling was being punished by imperial decree. What did it have to do with me? He continued. Lady Qingling is frail. Though His Majesty was lenient and allowed her to receive 10 lashes a day, she cannot endure it. His Majesty respects you. If you plead for her, surely he'll pardon her. I scoffed coldly. What meticulous calculations. The emperor's word was law. I was of humble status and my plea wouldn't carry much weight. Besides, 10 lashes a day for treason was already absurdly merciful. I replied frostily. She tried to steal my credit and defy the emperor. Let her bear the consequences herself. Why should I sacrifice my own position to save her? His tone grew desperate. You could offer to enter the palace as consort, trade that for Lady Qingling's pardon. His Majesty will surely agree. I looked him in the eye. In your dreams. She overreached and must face the price. I owe her nothing. I raised my voice. Guards. The royal guards assigned to me by the emperor entered at once. Escort Lord Bui out. He was dragged out like a crab, flailing, still shouting. Ta Qingjui. I've long heard of your cruelty, now I see it's true. With a reputation like yours, no household will ever marry you. I sneered. That's none of your concern. My past life. In my previous life, after Qingling entered the palace, I lost both legs and was cast off to a remote manor to rot alone. It was then that Bui Zhiwai proposed to my father. After marrying into his household, he treated me tenderly. We had a period of passionate affection. I once believed he was the salvation heaven had granted me. But reality struck me down. His tenderness was all because I resembled Ta Qingling. Just my brows, 3 parts similar. He loved her, not me. So now, I would give them what they wanted. Let's see just how deep his love for Qingling truly ran. Into the palace again. Soon after Bui Zhiwai left, a eunuch came with an imperial summons. The emperor wished to discuss flood control. In truth, I had met the emperor before, disguised as a man at a tea house, where scholars debated waterworks strategies. I'd joined the debate, thinking no one would recognize me. In the end, only 2 remained, me and a refined, elegant gentleman. We were equally matched. The crowd was split in support. We parted in a draw. As we parted, he pressed a sachet into my hand and said, "If you ever face hardship, bring this to me." After returning home, I examined the sachet. Its craftsmanship was extraordinary. Upon inquiry, I discovered, it came from the imperial palace. I dared not speak a word. I hid it away, never letting anyone see. In my past life, I had been too naive. I allowed the Ta family to deceive me over and over. I believed I owed Qingling. Even at the brink of death, I never dared to use that sachet to clear my name. I showed mercy to them. But they never once showed kindness in return. Even when I lay dying, Mother watched indifferently. Now, the emperor had seen through the lies. Fearing for my safety at the Ta estate, he often summoned me to the palace, to admire flowers, to talk. My life, at last, was peaceful. As for Ta Qingling, she never endured all 100 lashes. On the 3rd day, Mother threatened suicide. Father, fearing more scandal, resigned his post, thus sparing Qingling from the rest. I thought they would learn their lesson. But no sooner had I entered the palace than Mother came in person, demanding I return home. Qingling's health is poor, she said. You must come back and gather morning dew to cook her recovery porridge. I smiled thinly. Mother, I am now Princess Anning, appointed by the emperor himself. Such trivial tasks, let the servants handle them. I will not go. Mother was stunned by my refusal. She slammed the table and shouted. You wretched creature! Getting favored by the emperor and now daring to defy your own mother. If not for your cursed fate clashing with Qingling's, she'd be healthy. And now, with these beatings, she suffers even more. If you won't cook the porridge, it's like you're trying to kill her. I replied calmly. You care so deeply for elder sister, why not cook it yourself? With your sincerity, I'm sure it'll work even better than mine. You. Ta Qingjui. How dare you speak like that? She raised her hand to strike me. But a firm, powerful hand stopped her mid-air. "I'd like to see," came a cold voice. "Who dares lay a hand on Princess Anning? His Majesty arrives at the perfect moment." No one knew when, but His Majesty had already arrived, just in time to see Mother raise her hand against me. His expression turned dark. "I've only heard of medicine curing illness," the Emperor said coldly, "never porridge." "Very well, I shall accompany Princess Anning to see for myself. Send word to the Imperial Medical Bureau. Summon the imperial physicians to the residence of Minister Ta to examine Miss Ta Qingling." At those words, Mother's face did not brighten with joy. Instead, a trace of panic flickered in her eyes. Since his demotion, Father had been withdrawn, claiming illness to avoid court. Now, seeing the Emperor in person, his spirits lifted visibly. Upon hearing I was favored by the Emperor, his attitude toward me softened, if only slightly. He sighed. "Qingling's frail health, it was because of you. But now that she will be examined by imperial physicians thanks to you, perhaps this will count as atonement. From now on, you sisters must get along, don't trouble your elder sister anymore, or you'll break your father's heart." I smiled faintly and asked in return. "What if her illness has nothing to do with me? How will Father repay the years of humiliation I endured?" His expression darkened. Back then, the Grand Master clearly stated, "Your fate carries misfortune, destined to clash with Qingling's. And now you dare dispute that? Insolent girl." He trembled with anger, pointing at me with a shaking finger. I said no more, walking silently with him toward Ta Qingling's courtyard. The truth begins to surface. Qingling was elated to see the Emperor personally leading the imperial physicians to examine her. Unaware of the deeper intent, she assumed it was a special favor. She forced a delicate smile, casting coquettish glances toward the Emperor, failing to notice the alarm on Mother's face. When the physician stepped forward to take her pulse, Mother immediately tried to stop him. Qingling was puzzled. "Mother, how could we refuse the Emperor's kindness?" She brushed aside Mother's obstructing hands and willingly offered her wrist. Moments later, the physician spoke, and Mother turned deathly pale. "Your Majesty, the young lady's condition is indeed difficult to treat, but..." Qingling continued to act feeble, hoping to win the Emperor's pity. But His Majesty's eyes narrowed, fixed on the physician. "But what?" The physician replied. "This ailment appears congenital and exceedingly rare. It typically arises when the parents share close blood ties." The hall fell deathly silent. Mother trembled violently. Father erupted in fury. "Nonsense. My wife and I are not blood relatives. You're fabricating slander to protect Ta Qingjue. This is preposterous." Mother stood frozen, speechless with fear. Qingling furrowed her brow and echoed Father's words in a trembling voice. "Yes. The nobles here may not know, but Qingling's illness is clearly caused by my sister. It has nothing to do with our family's bloodline." Then she turned toward me, voice trembling with righteous indignation. "Sister, I know you've never wanted to accept that you're a cursed star. But to bribe the imperial physician and spread such lies before His Majesty, that's treason." Mother finally spoke, tearfully. "Husband, you know I'm innocent, don't you?" She sobbed. And Father, who had always loved her the most, quickly embraced her in sorrow, stroking her back to calm her. I gave a cold laugh. "No need to pin the blame on me, Father. Whether Qingling is truly your daughter or not, this can be easily confirmed through questioning." The Emperor's voice dropped like thunder. "Bring them in. The past is laid bare." Before returning to the estate, I had already predicted this performance. I'd long since informed the Emperor and arranged for the arrest. Moments later, an old woman with disheveled hair was brought forward. Trembling, she confessed everything. I was Madame's wet nurse. When she was still unmarried, she had a secret affair with her maternal cousin. They conceived Qingling in secret. But she was already betrothed to Minister Ta and had to marry him. To cover it up, I prepared a fake virgin's blood token. During her pregnancy, she lived in fear, thus Qingling was born frail. Later, when the second miss was born, Madame feared her presence would steal affection from Qingling. So she colluded with a so-called Grand Master to fabricate the claim that the second miss's fate clashed with Qingling's. I was assigned to serve Qingling closely. For years, I witnessed it all. Qingling resented her sister, often feigning illness to make her brew porridge day and night, tormenting her endlessly. Once, she locked the second miss in a kitchen and lit a fire, almost burning her alive. Another time, she brought a drunken servant to ruin the second miss's reputation. The old woman, overwhelmed by fear, blurted out every hidden truth, the secret affair, the false virginity, Qingling's real parentage, and all the cruel schemes she devised over the years. The maids attending Qingling were also interrogated. Each of them nodded, confirming every word. Collapse. Mother stood like a broken puppet, blank, hopeless, spiritless. Father, learning that the daughter he had loved for over a decade was not his own flesh and blood, could not accept the truth. He staggered backward and collapsed, his eyes filled with guilt and regret as he looked at me. Ta Qingling, her true face now exposed, had lost her identity as the legitimate daughter of the Ta household. She wept, head shaking in denial, unwilling to believe the truth. The emperor looked down at all present, then stood and gently took my hand. Qingjue, he said softly, to think you grew up in a place as poisonous as this, it truly breaks my heart. I gently withdrew my hand, smiling faintly as if nothing had happened. The emperor sighed. In the end, this is your family's private matter. I have no place interfering. You are now Princess Anning, decide for yourself. With that, he turned, leading his grand entourage back to the palace. Once the emperor vanished from view, father scrambled up from the ground. He strode toward mother and delivered a thunderous slap across her face. Wretched woman! How dare you deceive me for so many years? You made me raise another man's child. You drove me away from my own daughter, my true daughter. You poisonous snake! Mother collapsed in tears, hair disheveled, her sobs pitiful. In the past, father might have rushed to comfort her. But not this time. Now, he only coldly ordered the servants. Beat this harlot 100 lashes. If she survives, send her to the manor in exile. As for that bastard daughter, beat her and throw her out. Both mother and Qingling cried and begged, but their voices were drowned by the harsh thuds of wooden rods against flesh. 100 lashes each. It was unlikely either would walk away unharmed. I watched their pitiful end without satisfaction. Instead, an old sorrow rose in my chest. In my past life, hadn't I also died miserably? Father approached me, his eyes conflicted. Qingjue. I'm sorry. I wronged you. That woman ruined our bond. I promise I'll make it up to you. He clutched my hands with a pained expression. I shook him off with force. This belated fatherly love is cheaper than dirt. I don't need it. I turned and left. At the gates, my maid had already prepared my luggage and carriage. I departed for my new estate, the princess residence, a gift from the emperor. From this day forth, I had nothing more to do with the Ta family. I was no longer just someone's daughter. I was simply Ta Qingjue. After I moved, father sent letters every day, along with priceless treasures and rare gifts. I only laughed. Growing up, I never saw such luxury. Every fine thing in the Ta household had been given to Qingling. Even the things she didn't want, she'd rather throw them away than give them to me. Now he hoped these trinkets could erase my suffering. I was no longer that pitiful girl desperate for affection. These meant nothing. As I idly flipped through the gifts, Buizhuwei appeared again. I knew what he had come for, surely to scold me for being cruel to the woman he once loved. And indeed, his eyes were red as he stormed in. Qingling is starving, working herself to death at that manor. This is your doing, isn't it? Why won't you let her go? She's no longer a Ta daughter. She doesn't threaten you. Why do you still torment her? What kind of woman are you? I smiled coldly. So devoted. Shall I ask the emperor to arrange your marriage? That way, she'll be rescued from her suffering, and you'll get your long-cherished love. He faltered, suspicion flickering in his eyes. What are you plotting now? Never mind, come with me to the manor. Let's fetch Qingling together, then we'll talk. I nodded. As we arrived at the manor, Qingling's shrill voice echoed before we even entered. Bui Jiwai's face twisted in disbelief. I nudged him forward. Go on. Didn't you come to fetch her? He hesitated, then pushed the door open. Inside, Qingling stumbled down in coarse rags, her hair matted, her skin dull and freckled. She shouted at the servants. You lowly things. Just because I've fallen doesn't mean you can treat me this way. I'm going to be a noble lady, General Bui is madly in love with me. Seeing this vulgar side of her, Bui Jiwai took several steps back. He turned to flee, but I blocked him. Didn't you want to bring her back? What, you haven't even spoken to her yet and already running? Planning to beg the emperor for a marriage next. He looked like he'd swallowed a fly, shaking his head vehemently. I had always known, his love for Qingling was a fleeting obsession with her once untouchable beauty. But now, faced with this version of her, all he wanted was to escape. Men. They only value what they can't have. I gestured for the guards to shove him through the door. Qingling, seeing him, lit up. Bui Gongzi. You've come to save me. But he turned and fled. She cried his name, her voice echoing through the yard, but he never looked back. I stood expressionless, watching despair consume her face. Qingling, I said coldly. Stop wasting your breath. Look at yourself, do you really think he still wants you? See. He avoids you like a plague. She glared at me, eyes full of hate. It's all your fault. You did this to me. I'll never forgive you. She lunged at me. I sidestepped easily. She fell, face first in the dirt. From the back room, Mother, now aged and feeble, dragged herself to the doorway. Her voice shook. Qingjue, you and Qingling may not share blood, but you're still sisters. Please, spare her. Punish me instead. Let her live. I looked at her, once pampered, now haggard like a commoner. Mother, I said quietly. I'll grant you that title for birthing me. But you know how you treated me. I'll spare your life, but from this day on, our debts are settled. As for Qingling, she reaps what she sowed. Live out your days here in repentance. I turned and boarded my carriage. Soon, news of Minister Ta raising another man's child spread throughout the capital, the greatest scandal in Bianjing. Ashamed, father resigned and left for the countryside. But misfortune struck again. On his journey, he was ambushed by bandits and killed. Bui Jiwai later married a noble heiress. He quickly forgot Qingling. But on his wedding day, Qingling reappeared, mad, screaming in the streets like a scorned woman. The general's family had no mercy. She was beaten to death right there in public. When I heard the news, I was already on my way to Jiangnan, wandering among its misty rains, leaving the past behind. In the busiest wine tavern on a market street, I sipped quietly, drunk on the haze of the south. Suddenly, a familiar voice whispered in my ear. I opened my drowsy eyes, only to see a breathtaking man pull me into his embrace. Qingjue, good wine, yet you didn't invite me to share it. I looked into his luminous eyes and smiled. A smile more radiant than all the blossoms in the mountains. The end.